that? That's not woodworking, that's therapy, my friend. Welcome to Are We Woodworks. My name is Rahim. Most people think hand planes are hard to use. And if you've ever tried one out of the box or one that you've purchased at the flea market, I'm sure you'll probably agree. They squeal, they chatter, they tear the grain. It's a disaster. And honestly, it's punishment. And I feel like somewhere in the world, a tree cries every time that happens. But it's not the plane's fault. 99% of the time, the problem is right here. A dull blade turns a great tool into paperweight. But a sharp blade, well, that makes all the difference. It's not magic, it's just sharpening. And today, I'm going to walk you through the complete process to get an edge like this. Even if your tool looks like this, no matter your skill level or your experience. That's enough talking. Let's roll that intro and let's get right into it. All right. Meet Grandpa Plane. He's crusty, he's cranky, and he hasn't been touched since probably the Nixon administration. Let's take him apart. I'll show you all the pieces, and then we'll give him a spa, clean him up, and obviously sharpen his blade. First and foremost, we have the lever cap. This is what holds the blade in place. If this is hard to take off, you might need to work on this screw here, which will help you loosen up the lever cap. Then once you take that off, the chip breaker, as well as the iron or the blade, will come off together. This you can split apart by taking a screwdriver. And if it's a little rusty like this one, it might take a bit. You don't have to take the screw off all the way because you can usually twist it and take it off. But as you can see, this blade has not been touched in a long time. So once you have the chip breaker and the blade removed, the next piece that you need to look at is the frog. Not the kind that jumps around, but rather the kind that has three major tasks to all wood planes. Number one is when you have the blade in place, it allows the blade to be presented at a very precise angle to the wood that you're planing. Number two is the chip breaker has this little groove built into it. That groove fits into frog, and the lever in the back allows the blade and the chip breaker that work together to be presented forward or presented back, depending on how much you turn this knob in the back. I'll talk more about that when we actually run the blade. The last piece that the frog helps you with is once the blade is presented to the frog, there's a lever in the back that you can move left or right. It allows the blade to turn at an angle. This is to ensure that you're presenting the blade in the angle that you want. Again, we'll talk more about that in detail when we're actually running the blade. And with all that set apart, our next step is to remove the frog as well as a few other screws. So I'm going to go ahead and take off this top screw that holds down the lever cap, followed by the frog itself. And finally, the two screws that hold down the handles. And there we have it. Our plane completely dismantled. And the last thing that you want to do is remove this lever, and that's as simple as screwing this off and taking a screwdriver and removing it from the frog itself. All right, for the next step, we're going to need, I usually like to use a foil tray because I can usually dispose of it. Some abrasive pads, 3M branded here. Grade 000, which is fine steel wool. A pair of scissors to cut the abrasive pads. A pair of gloves to keep your hands safe. And, of course, the cleaner. Now, the choice for me is CLR, readily available at any big box store, and it does a good job. I placed all the individual pieces into the CLR for about 5 minutes. And after that, it was good old elbow grease to get all the rust taken out. By the way, if you're enjoying this video, please make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel for future content. Okay guys, so with a little elbow grease, we got most of the rust out. I don't want to say all, but what's important is that you quickly dry out everything, because this is metal. As it gets exposed to water, it will rust. And therefore, now that we have everything all nice and dry, some drops need to just dry off. We need to put this thing back together. But before we do, I like to use Minwax paste to put all the screws, as well as some of the metal parts, to ensure it doesn't rust again. Let me do that, get it all together, minus the chip maker and the blade, and then we'll get into our sharpening. All right guys, the plane is now all done, ready. There is no rust, or hardly any rust that you can see on the plane. Very happy with what this looks like. But we now need to work on the blade, which is the star of the show always. When it comes to sharpening a blade, you primarily need a sharpening solution. My choice is the MPower. Now, this is not a sponsored video. This is all stuff that I purchased from my own money for the sharpening stone. But this is a kit that is basically everything all in one. So these are diamond stones. You have the 300, the 600, the 1200, and then you have 1800, 2500, and 5000, which obviously require the honing compound that comes with it, which is 3 different colors. You have the honing solution, or the lapping fluid, right, to ensure that you get a little liquid on the stone. And then beyond the stone, one other thing that you'll need, and this is my own personal opinion, is a honing guide. Now, look, if you've been a woodworker for a very long time, you do this day in and day out, you develop the habit of being able to hold that angle on the blade at a consistent level as you sharpen the blade. I, alongside many others, are weekend woodworkers, and so our muscle memory doesn't develop as well. Now look, I've been watching Rob Cosman for years. I think he's a phenomenal man. He does fantastic work with this Purple Heart project. More power to him. But I think for me, a honing guide is a lot easier. Let me show you this particular honing guide. Banggood sent this over to me. It's a Hongdui HD29 honing guide. It comes with everything you need in a box. You can purchase these things individually as well, but they sent me over the kit, so I'd like to show it to you. Comes in a very nice box, has a magnetic tip as well, so everything stays inside the box. You're not losing anything. And you have the angle finder. First of all, the fidget spinner angle finder. So basically how you use this is there are degrees written on here. And so you take your blade that you're wanting to sharpen and you place it in to see what angle the current blade is on. Beyond that, you have the actual honing guide itself. Really well piece of machinery. It is heavy duty in your hand. It is amazing, and I'll talk about some of the key benefits that you have. Not only can you do chisels and hand planed blades straight, but you can also do them at an angle, and it actually has 2 different angles. Well, 0 degree, which was already set, but then you have 2 separate angles, 18 as well as 30 for skewed chisels. You can also turn this thing around as well, depending on the type of blade you have. But for our use, we're going to leave it at 0, and we're going to use the regular jaws. So the way that this works is you put the blade in here, and now here's where the magic happens, right? So when you roll this thing over on a stone, there's a specific angle that you're looking for. Well, we know by looking at the angle finder, that we need the 30-degree mark. So they have this gauge where you can mark the 30 degrees. Okay, so once you have it marked, they have a little dovetail pin that can fit in here. Loosen this up just a little bit, move that blade back, and you bring this in here and you lock it down. Now, let me explain one thing to you. There's 2 things that are very important here. One is the blade needs to be 90 degrees, right? So when it goes down, the entire blade needs to be exposed at the 0 line on the degree form. The other thing that's very important is that the blade be at the right angle. So on this honing guide, you have this piece that's going to help you get the 90-degree mark. And then you have the front line, which is going to get you the 30 degrees. So you loosen it up, you put it in without having to think twice. I know I'm going to get 30 degrees every single time, as long as I put it in, butt it up to the front, and lock it in place. Now, once this is locked in, you no longer need the guide, so you can remove the guide out. And now you are ready to tighten this thing onto the sharpening stones. Whatever degree you want is already set now. Above and beyond that, they also give you this piece here, which I don't necessarily use. I have not had the need for it. It's good to have in case you need it, but it's there for longer chisels or longer planes. Sometimes you do get a flex in your blade as you press down. And this usually happens on very thin blades, which I don't necessarily have, but you can use this on top to ensure that there's downward pressure, and now this is not going anywhere. And now all I need to do is set up my stones. Let's do that next, and I'll show you how this runs. Okay, the next step is to actually sharpen the blade. And by all means, this is the easiest system that I have ever seen in my life. Everything comes all together in one piece. They have rubber bases on the bottom so it doesn't really move. These are diamond stones, so you never have to replace them. It's just an amazing system. So all you need to do, so you have a 300, a 600, and a 1200. Because our chisel is very, very, very old and it hasn't been touched up for a while, we're going to start up at the 300. Normally, you really don't need to go down to 300. You can usually do 600. And for me, while I'm using a hand plane or a chisel, if I see the need for it to be retouched up, or it's not as sharp as it was, I would simply just go to the 1200 and use a leather strop to tune it up. And that's really all I need to get this done. But for me, for this particular plane, we're going to do a 300, 600, 1200. And then I'll show you how sharp it is. And that's really all there is to it. But I'm going to cue the montage now, and you'll get to see how I sharpen the blade. All right, it is time to reassemble this back into our hand plane. This Hongdui honing guide is absolutely a masterpiece. They have made such great tools, and this is no different. The one thing I did not do on this particular plane that you can do is that a lot of people like to have a secondary bevel. And I don't want to say that's an advanced thing to do, but it is your next level, right? It's your next step. Basically what you do is you have a secondary bevel on there. So if your initial plane angle is 25, you add a secondary bevel, which is 30 degrees, which that means you don't have to sharpen all the entire area again the next time you go. You're only going to retouch up the 30 degree, which is a lot quicker. And that's the entire concept that Rob Cosman teaches on his channel as well. And his channel will be linked below. He is one of the best teachers and woodworkers that I like to follow on YouTube. And if you like woodworking, you should follow him as well. But let's put this plane back together and let's see how it performs. Now, putting it back together is very simple, actually, not very difficult at all. The one thing that I always had a problem with in the beginning was the direction of which the chip breaker as well as the plane go. So they go facing the opposite direction, like so. So there's usually a 1/32 or like a millimeter-ish, like very minor gap between the two. So once you get those together, you can go ahead and tighten up the screw. Now you want to make sure you tighten the screw down pretty good because you don't want chips going between the blade and the chip breaker. That will definitely hinder your performance on the blade. Make sure it's tighter, just there we go. And then the blade goes on the bottom facing downward, goes in the groove like I had shown earlier as well. All right. So now I had opened this screw as well, so we'll need to tighten this screw down a little bit. Now, if you tighten this screw down too hard, what's going to happen is that when you bring your lever cap down, your adjustments in the back will be very difficult, and that's a great way of knowing why it's so difficult. But this one looks like, yeah, this might be a little bit tight. Let's loosen that down just a little bit. There we go. That's much better. We're going to start by sighting it down. This is something that Rob Cosman teaches. Down a lighter color surface, and you expose the blade enough so that you can see it and ensure that it's coming out straight. Actually already pretty straight. And once that's completed, we can retract the blade back all the way in. Okay, now that is a sharp blade, so make sure you don't go the wrong direction. I'm gonna go ahead and set up the same piece of wood here. So we're gonna start with the blade completely retracted. And we know nothing is getting cut. And we'll move this lever forward a quarter of a turn, if that, at a time. Don't rush this. Because if you rush this, all right, so we've started to engage. If you rush this, then you'll end up turning it too much, which is going to cause you to take large gaps out, and you might even hurt your blade. So now I'm going to go a little bit at a time until I get a proper shaving. There it is. And we are now engaged. A little bit more. And I want you to just take a look at the thickness of this shaving. And this is what you're looking for. Look at how thin this shaving is. I mean, I can almost see my thumb straight through it. Okay, let's give it a whirl. Okay, so now just go like that. Yeah, go. Way to go. Push a little forward. Yeah, just keep pushing forward. There you go. Oh, look at that. Hang on.
Stuff, bro.
She can do it. I can do it. Anyone can do it. Thanks again for tuning in. We'll see you guys in the next one.